Welcome into the DNVR Rockies podcast, brought to you, as always, by Strava Craft Coffee. Remember to use the promo code DNVR25. You'll save 25% off your entire purchase of that CBD-infused, deliciously rich, and potentially life-altering Strava Craft Coffee. I'm your host, Drew Creasman. I'm the managing editor of DNVR Rockies, and joining me for this one is the voice of the Colorado Rockies on AT&T SportsNet and the host of the Drew Goodman podcast. Boys and girls, it's Drew Goodman.
What's up, Drew? How are you, man?
Feeling good. It's interesting. The weather has turned very cold in the last couple of days. It was a very emotional week for Rockies fans and the Rockies community since, last we talked to you, of course, Larry Walker, number retirement, packed house, tons of great feelings. And then, of course, this Trevor Story stuff where tons of great feelings, but also a bittersweet moment. You had him on the show, really, really candid conversation. And it's just this weird feeling, I think, that has kind of come over Rockies fandom in the last couple of days, realizing this very likely, though not necessarily, could be the final days of Trevor Story in a Rockies uniform.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a myriad of emotions, clearly for Trevor, but for fans as well. And did they see him in purple for the final time at Coors Field? And of course, this weekend, the last three ball games. Interestingly, somewhat ironically, where it all began with the 2-homer game in his debut against Zach Greinke down in Arizona. So, full circle. I'm sure people will draw a lot of parallels with the fact that it's this season is going to end there. And I think probably likely that Trevor's career with the Rockies is going to end there. But he was very candid in the interview. I think you will see all the things you liked about Trevor off the field in the interview on my podcast. And I think that you will see that there is, clearly great uncertainty to what lies ahead. And I don't think he tries to mask that. And I think he's very honest in answering, the number of questions that I put forth. So, if you get a minute, give that a listen. And I think it'll give you greater insight into who Trevor is and where he is right now as we embark on the 2021 offseason.
Yeah. It was fascinating. A lot of times you don't get to ask all the questions. You can ask near the questions that you were asking, but it was very straightforward and very candid, like you said. And so, and a rare opportunity, honestly. And you don't always get the chance to have a conversation like this with a player in this situation, and for him to be that honest. So I appreciated the fact that you, in your questioning of him, asked questions like, how, where, and to what extent do the Colorado Rockies factor into your thinking of the future? Just straightforward, as simple as that. Tell me where the Rockies, what you're thinking there. And that's, a fair question to ask. And I thought he gave a fair answer to it. And there were several of those where I was like, a lot of other times, guy, certainly if you didn't have the kind of relationship that you have to develop with these guys over years, if it was someone who Trevor didn't know, some reporter he's never met before asking some of these same questions, maybe slightly differently, it would have been it would have been a different interview. I'll say that. So I thought both of you handled a very delicate topic very well.
Well, I appreciate that. And, I think he's a very authentic person by nature. And, fortunately I've gotten to know him, fairly well from somebody who's around him typically on a day-to-day basis for 6-7 months. It's not like, I'm much older than him. It's not like we go out and break bread together and that sort of thing. But I there's a mutual respect and, a comfort level, I think, on his end. And so, he gave, forthright answers, and the credit goes to him. It has nothing to do with me. I think maybe it's a little more comfortable because he knows me, but that's who he is. I mean, he's a quiet guy. He's a reserved guy by and large. I think people can glean that from just watching him and hearing him and sound bites over the years. But he, I think, gives more of himself and realized that he needed to. He certainly owes it. Yeah, I don't know if he owes it, but felt like he owes it to the fan base. To not only to thank them, but to tell them where he is at this place and time. And I come back to a word you used and a word that I just used again. I mean, I think the responses were authentic. They weren't masked in cliches. So, give it a listen, and you can draw your own conclusions. I don't think you can come away though having anything but respect for Trevor and who he is.
Absolutely. And, one of the things that I wanted to get your take on this as I was listening was thinking about, and we've been having these conversations in our Discord channel for subscribers, and I think it's just generally taking place more nationally, is I think that Trevor Story's issue here is also Major League Baseball's issue, right? Because Trevor, I think, very fairly wants two things. And you even asked him about his priorities, and he didn't go right through the list, but reading between the lines a little bit, he wants to compete. He wants to win. And totally 100% understand that from any of these guys. And he also wants to get paid what he's worth, what he is fairly worth. And that's totally fair for any of these guys. And there's a shrinking number of teams that do both of those things, that spend big money on star players and compete. And in the age of the Rays and the A's and Moneyball and don't do that, there is a more and more limited number of options, right? And I think that's one of the things that this next CBA is going to be in large deal about. And I'll tell you, Goody, I've been thinking lately that I used to be totally against the idea of expanded postseason. I've been warming to it. And after listening to your conversation with Trevor Story and just thinking about the state of baseball and how difficult it is for that marriage to happen, I may have fully crossed the line. And that's one of the reasons I just think you've got to expand the postseason. You've got to give more life to these fan bases and franchises out there that can't spend the big money and maybe don't have the sway or the pull or whatever to do the Moneyball thing. And if those are your only two options, everyone else is just supposed to lose on purpose. This is not good for the economics and future of baseball, and something has to give.
Well, I would take it. I agree with you, and I'll also tell you that I had always skewed toward being a baseball purist and wax nostalgia about things that had occurred in the past, and it's so hard to get into the postseason. Let's not make it the NBA and the NHL. Sports I love, but far easier to be part of the postseason tournament, if you will. So I've changed on a lot of things. This is a complete aside. I'll give you one, and we can chat about this, me, you, and Patrick, on a future podcast, Drew. But I'm all for now the California tiebreaker rule staying put after this new CBA.
Yeah,
I don't need to see 16, 17 inning games. We want to keep players healthy, pitchers in particular. The sport's about pitching. We don't. You know what a 16 inning game's good for? When you and I are bullshitting over a beer and going, hey, remember that 5 hour and 27-minute game in Philadelphia, and the center fielder had to come in and pitch. It sounds romantic when we look back on it. It's unnecessary.
Yeah.
All right. You want to get this next generation involved and wanting to see baseball. To your point, have your team stay in it in July, August, and September. Give them a carrot. Look at what the Cardinals have done. They were an afterthought. They're, people in baseball crazy St. Louis and the surrounding area, they were, they were just there, right? And then all of a sudden they go on this tremendous run, and now you can't imagine. My son, goes to school and plays ball there. He says it's unbelievable. They're going nuts, which is one of the great things about baseball. But if they didn't have that carrot of an additional wild card, then it would be a non-story. Think about it. They would have won 17 in a row And be, hey, here's a pat on the back. Nice job. Enjoy your off season. Go to a beach somewhere. We'll see you in spring training.
That's a I hadn't considered it in quite that context. That's amazing. 100%. And, that's why. So I have come up with a 2-word just now. Again, just listening to you talk. Just my 2-word phrase that I would like for the players and the owners to rally around in this entire negotiation process. Incentivize winning. Let's do that. Let's incentivize winning.
Well,
more than losing.
Listen, I agree with you. I agree with you. Now, there's a process to getting to a place where you can win. And I'll point something else out. And you're going to hear this, and you alluded to this. And when you go and listen to my podcast, you'll hear Trevor talk about prioritizing winning. And I asked him, what is the list of, if you had to enumerate number 1, number 2, number 3 in terms of what you want in either where you are now or a future team. And winning is at the top of the list. He made that pretty clear. I think most players are going to say that. And I know that there's a great deal of money to be made, and every player should be able to maximize it because they're no different than you or I. And I say that whatever your vocation is, you want to be paid the maximum amount you can. If you're an electrician, if you're a teacher, if you're a broadcaster, if you're whatever it is you do, and you have every right to want to maximize that. Now, having said that, the reality, and Drew, you talk a lot about this, and Patrick as well, that winning's hard in baseball.
Yeah.
Winning's hard. And to consistently win, let's just off the top of our heads, and you study this backwards and forwards. We're going to mention something on the broadcast in the next couple of days on AT&T SportsNet, because Doug Marino and I were talking about this the other day, and we're doing some research on it. But, go back the last 10 or 15 years, even the Giants, who are having an incredible year, right? They've won 3 World Series, so they got a lot of bank. I'm not gonna suggest otherwise. They haven't been in the postseason in 5 years, 6 years, something like that. 2016, I think, was the last time. And this is a big market team. The Yankees seemingly go every year. We know the Dodgers are on an incredible run.
Right.
Boston, some. It's been a great 20-year run, but they've had some times where they're on the sidelines, right? The Angels, for all the money they spend. The Cubs finally broke the curse, but, they're not very good right now. My point is, it's hard in baseball to go year after year after year. Now, if you take the last 5 years, the Rockies have been there twice, 17 and 18. 20 was what it was, a great start and truncated season. This year, better than people thought, but it's not good. You're not going to the postseason, right? 19, very disappointing. If you can consistently get there 40% of the time, and I don't know if the Rockies can. Historically, it hasn't been 40%. I'm just taking a smaller sample size, 5 years. But if you honestly can go to the postseason 2 out of every 5 years, you're much better off than most teams.
Right. It's I had gone back to an old stat, and it's difficult considering the grand history of baseball. There's a lot that gets lost in this, but I used to joke about this. The team with the 6th best winning percentage all time in the history of Major League Baseball, and a team that's been around for a very long time, is the Chicago Cubs. Not a team that's thought of as a paragon of constant success in Major League Baseball because they haven't won it all very often, right? And it's a .514 winning percentage. That's 6th best all time. And the teams that are ahead of them, by the way, are all the teams who have been the long-established forever teams. It's the Red Sox, the Cardinals, the Dodgers, the Giants, and the Yankees. Those are the stalwarts.
Is it in that order?
Yankees, number 1.
Oh, okay, because when you said Yankees 5th, you went the other way. Okay.
I went in reverse order.
Yankees,
number 1, Giants, Dodgers, Cardinals, Red Sox. And again, the Red Sox being in 5th, this is including that 100-year stretch where they didn't win the World Series, but they were always in it. Like the Cubs, they would get to the postseason all the time. So that's kind of the history of their franchise. After that, actually 7th, this is hilarious, Cleveland.
Yeah, I don't know how many people would have suggested that, right?
all time. And so, yeah, once you get past those teams, the Yankees, the Giants, the Dodgers, the Cardinals, the Red Sox, everyone else is fighting for that window of a couple of years where they're competitive to do what we saw the Royals do or what we saw the Washington Nationals do. And look at where both of those teams are right now. It's a quick window to the World Series, everybody else is fighting for it. So I do think that in the modern age of baseball, that there's got to be a parity. I don't know how you create it. Will, talking about lottery for the top draft picks. I've never been a huge fan of the draft lotteries, but at this point, I'm willing to consider a lot of things because I just think in a modern age where you are competing with football and the NBA and the NHL and a million other entertainment options, people aren't going to go through 20-year stretches like the Phillies did in the 60s and 70s, like the Orioles and Royals did in my lifetime. During my childhood, those teams were never relevant. And I just don't know how long fan bases are going to stick around, and I just don't think it's good. There's got to be a solution to that. So opened up a huge can of worms here, but yeah.
No, I mean, I hope I don't know if everything can be addressed in this particular collective bargaining agreement. Number one is you want to make sure on both sides they understand there cannot be any sort of missed games. You cannot do that to the sport. You cannot do that to the sport. We've said that in the past, but you certainly in today's environment globally, you can't do that. Now, after that, I hope a lot of these things are addressed. You know what I'd like to see? Hey, Drew, you're the general manager of the team with the 4th pick in the draft, right? I'm the general manager of the team with the 10th pick in the draft.
Yes.
Just like the NFL. I mean, think of how sexy the NFL draft is. And I know we know more of those players because we watch them on Saturday play college football. And in Major League Baseball, we hear, oh, there's this great shortstop at Oak Christian High School and,
right
outside of, Los Angeles. And he's wonderful. But you don't know. You don't know anything other than what you read, right?
Right.
You got to be pretty hardcore to be reading about it. But anyhow, if you can go, hey, the team with the 4th pick is just traded down and they got the 10th pick and an additional 2nd round pick in next year's draft, along with super utility infielder, Billy Bob. You're like, ooh, that's pretty interesting. Right?
Yeah. Got to be able to trade draft picks. We were talking about that in our Discord today. So, which reminder, by the way, why you should subscribe to the DNVR.com. You get to hang out in a private chat room where we're talking baseball 24/7. Also, all the other sports. So if you're a multi-sport fan, you're basically got constant access to other fans and beat writers to talk to about all your favorite theories and suggestions, what's going on with your ball clubs. But also we talk movies and television, skiing and snowboarding, what people are cooking up, all kinds of fantastic stuff. People sharing their photography. Come hang out with us in there. You also get a bigger beer down at the DNVR Bar Breck Brew. Of course, you get a free shirt when you order the annual subscription. You get, what else? You get all kinds of stuff. Free high fives for life down at the DNVR Bar. That's true. That's a real thing. But for the most part, it really is just, you get to go hang out at the tailgate parties. If you're a Broncos fan, you haven't been out to one of those tailgate parties where there's all the Breckenridge brew and sexy pizza. That's right. It's sexy pizza that you can get, and it'll only cost you $30 for all of it. You can even take a bus down there from the DNVR bar if you get in early, which means, potentially more Breck brews for you. So subscribe, do all that good stuff. We appreciate you being a part of the family. That's one of the reasons why we hook you up with our partners like Hassel Cattle Company. I love their beef. I would never lie to you about something as important as beef, and I am still sitting on 100% positive reviews of the Wagyu beef from Hassel Cattle Company. Check them out today at HASSELL Cattle Company.com. Use promo code DNVR10. You'll save 10% off. And if you order over $200, they'll hook you up with free shipping. The Wagyu beef is absolutely delicious, and it's good on your conscience because there's no hormones or antibiotics. Treat the animal, treats the environment well, treats your body well, treats your wallet well because they don't charge you for all that stuff. I'm telling you, go there today, check out the promos. You will be shocked that this stuff that sounds super fancy, like fancy beef that you have to order online, isn't it just easier to go into the grocery store? No. You get less good product. You pay more for it. It's worse for you. It's worse for everybody along the chain who got it to you. So order from Hassel Cattle Company today. They'll ship it straight to your door. It doesn't get easier than that. HASSELL cattlecompany.com. And again, don't forget to use promo code DNVR10. All right, Goody.
Hey, nicely done.
Thank you. On the flip side of the emotional spectrum this week, and I do want to start, it's like, look, it's blow sunshine up Drew Goodman's ass day. But look, when someone does a good job in the Rockies community, I like to acknowledge it. And we talked about it on the show. Your participation in, and we'll talk in here, the Larry Walker ceremony. And I wanted to ask you first specifically, and I know you'll get to talking about the thing itself, so I want to put it on you and in your perspective in that moment, because I wrote about this after the fact, this unique relationship that Rockies fans have with Larry Walker. And one of the things that I wrote in the piece was that during his major league career, he never chose to play anywhere else. Not to put anything else on anything that's going on right now or whatever, but those were the two contracts that he chose as a major leaguer to put his name on, were with the Colorado Rockies. You know, he came up with the other team. He was traded to the Cardinals, and the choosing of each other. And we talked about how the Cooperstown ceremony, very few Rockies fans able to make it out there, very few fans in general able to make it out there. So as great as it was, you literally stood in the middle of this moment where Rockies fans got to express their feelings for him, and he got to express his feelings for them. And I was very moved by the entire proceeding. So I just want to know what it was like for you to literally be right in the middle of all of that.
I was honored to have a really tiny role in being involved in that ceremony and helping MC it and really having, I guess, the first word. I don't know if that's the right way of putting it, because I spoke first, and then Vinny came out naturally, and Bob Gebhardt came out, and then what everybody wanted to hear obviously was Larry, and Larry killed it with his speech as he did in Cooperstown. It was reminiscent of when I got to be in the same role when Todd Helton went in. Or not went in, but had his number retired. Hopefully, Todd Helton, we're gonna have another big do when Todd Helton goes in.
I think you just actually saw into the future. I think that's what happened. Is you had a like in Field of Dreams when she asked him if he had a flash forward.
Flash forward, right? But no, it was a lot of fun. It was. I think I said this on the broadcast that night when Larry joined us in the booth, and I know I said it to my partners off the field. The games run together oftentimes, and that's not to diminish the joy that the games bring us and the moments bring us. And part of the unfolding of the many pages in a season is seeing it day to day and living it day to day. And even though a lot of the games are somewhat nondescript, and even the ones that make you go, ooh, wow, what a great comeback, walk-off homer, or what a great Tuesday night at Coors Field, or man, how about that victory coming from behind a great American ballpark. And at least the way I'm wired, I remember it, and there's great joy in being able to pass along and narrate, if you will, what's going on the television side. But for me, again, the way I'm wired, it's kind of all just ends up in the ether. Yet there are some moments that you'll always kind of remember, and certainly that on the field celebration of Larry and the retirement of his 33, that will linger.
Yeah, we did a crossover recently with our guys down at the PHNX Diamondbacks, and we were talking to them about only one team is going to win the World Series, and everybody else is going to have a season where the big memories are those kinds of moments that stick out. For some of them, there will be, for the Rays, it'll be getting in deep into the postseason and then losing in the World Series. Sorry. But, these are the kinds of moments. So when I think, people talked about this year. I know there were a lot of people that didn't watch and get into it, and I totally understand that. But for those of us that watched all 161 games of the season, Armand Marquez almost throwing the no-hitter at Coors Field, still getting the complete game shutout, and the Larry Walker ceremony. Those are the things that I think you stand out and you go, man, that was a special night. I'll remember that. That was really, really cool, especially if you were there at the ballpark. Yeah, and I think those moments are great. I think it's absolutely fantastic that you can think back on. You know, they were talking about the 2 no-hitters. They're claiming the Madison Bumgarner one, but they had a couple of no-hit. A team lost. They're on 107 losses. But if you hung around and watched the Diamondbacks all year, you got treated to a couple of absolutely phenomenal and inspiring pitching performances. And I just love that about baseball, because if you watch a crap NFL team, if you're watching the New York Jets right now, what are your moments that you're pointing out and be like, I remember that day when we only lost by 20?
Well, listen, I'm a hardcore New York Giant fan. And that is exactly right. You're like, okay, what's there to get? I'm watching. It's like deja vu all over again. But in baseball, even in years where you come up short, in years where you're dramatically short, like Arizona is, there are moments, and that's the beauty of baseball. And for the Rockies this year, yes, on one hand, I talk about this on the podcast. They're far better, for whatever that's worth, because you're not a postseason team, than most people had prognosticated. Oh, Nolan's gone. One of the worst trades ever in some people's opinion. And even though we don't know, it's hard to evaluate until you know what happens with Gomber and Montero and et cetera. So that's a little bit premature. But anyhow, the bottom line is people thought they were going to lose 100 games. A lot of people thought they were going to lose 100 games. They're far better than that. They're actually going to finish with, somewhere between, I don't know, Drew, 2, 3, 4, 5 more wins this year than in 2019 when Nolan Arenado was playing third and Trevor was playing short.
Right.
And, it's kind of that's I don't know, interesting in some regard. And congrats to Nolan. He's had a terrific year with St. Louis, and they're on one heck of a roll. They're on an 07 Rockies roll. But as I ramble here, baseball does provide moments, man. And one of those moments was the, Larry Walker and the number being retired, was German Marcus, and was the All-Star game in Denver.
Yeah.
And so each year, some it's on the docket because, they're going to retire Larry Walker's number. We knew that, right? Awesome. Everybody's looking forward to it. But there's other stuff that happens that you had no idea was going to happen.
Right. The general Connor Joe experience. I think that's one other thing we'll probably look back on this year. There may not be one moment that stands out. Maybe the homer on the 1-year anniversary of the cancer thing. But I really just do think people just Connor Joe's general presence is what,
Drew, I love how you describe that. And I've said this before on the broadcast. I'll tell you what, we sometimes place our athletes on too tall of a pedestal, if you will. So guys like, me and you, they happen to be really gifted at playing a game, and bless them for that. Good for them. But the ones that step forward and you say, whether this guy was a carpenter or a teacher or, go through a whole litany of what one can do for a living, right? You'd say, man, I like to be around that guy. That guy's uplifting. That guy's a bright light. That's Connor Joe. And yeah, he's when he was healthy, we saw a guy that can be part of the solution as an offensive player. And so we're intrigued by that. But when you spend some time around Connor Joe, and not just with his courageous and triumphant victory over cancer, but just who he is, you're like, I want to gravitate to that type of individual. He makes me feel better when I walk away. And to have that kind of trait, that's neat stuff. And to have him, wearing the uniform of the of the team that we all root for in the summer. Pretty neat stuff as well.
Yeah. Yeah, lots of stuff like little things like that, as you were saying, go a long way toward why this team outperformed expectations. And by the way, if you got on the DraftKings Sportsbook app and you took the over on the Colorado Rockies, you collected your money weeks ago. I think they had. I told you, I went on DNVR bets and everyone was in a bad mood. I wasn't in a good mood either. It was like the day of, I think, the trade, and we were making preseason prognostications, and 100 losses, I think, was trending, and everyone just wanted to know how bad I thought the team was going to be. And I went, look, folks, I get it. We're all upset. No one's happy. You can't be that bad when your starting pitching is this good. 63.5 wins. Hammer the over incredibly hard. I don't care how upset you are. And if you did that, if you took my advice just before the season started, collected a while ago. It's always fun to hop on the DraftKings Sportsbook app. Baseball season wrapping up. Football is one of the easiest and most fun sports to bet on there. I find, even if you don't follow the NFL especially closely, it's really easy to understand what the bets are and kind of play some small dollar amounts and make some money on overs and unders, and just bet on the Broncos right now. They're playing well. Either way, it's a whole lot of fun. You can download the top-rated DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use promo code DNVR to receive $150 in free bets instantly when you place $1 on any football game. That's promo code DNVR to get $150 in free bets instantly this week at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. Must be 21 or older, Colorado only, new customers only. Restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. And if you have a gambling problem, call 1-800-522-4700. And last one of these for you is our friends over at, what is it? Oh, just off the screen, Green Mountain Dental Group. They put big, happy smiles on our faces, and they make our smiles the best that they can be. Located just 15 minutes outside of downtown Denver in the Lakewood area. They'll put all the energy into what you're doing. They'll make you feel better about going to the dentist. If you're like me, you're not super excited about it. If you're fine about going to the dentist, well, then they'll talk sports with you and give you world-class care. Either way, they treat you like family. They've treated us like family from the very beginning. If you need any kind of dentist work done, check out our friends at Green Mountain Dental Group. And also, they'll hook you up with that free Sonicare toothbrush when you schedule your cleaning, x-ray, and exam today. So, yeah, Goody, is a couple of final thoughts here on some of those things. I feel like we can't help. We're already looking forward to the future, but we do have this final, set here in Arizona. What is kind of the story of this series in your mind? What are you looking forward to see? Is there anything kind of that can grab you here in these last couple of days from the Rockies' perspective?
Well, I don't know if anything, is going to be able to go, oh man, what a great 3 games in Arizona. Now this elevates somebody to a different, stature. You want to see everybody finish strong. You want to see, for last starts for certain guys, John Gray's making his last start.
John's maybe the one, yeah.
Yeah, you want it to be a positive one. I know he has had less play in the quote-unquote imminent free agent world than Trevor. Same thing with CJ Cron. I like the chances of both of those guys being back in a Rockies uniform, but you want to see him, finish strong. Senza's had a great last couple of months. Finish strong. Everybody go off into the offseason healthy. Accumulate a couple more wins. I know it's cosmetic. I know at the end of the day, whether it's 70, what are they, 73? I'm looking at my now 73 and 85. So, can you get to 76? Great. It's not where you want to be. You want to be 90 plus, right? In the postseason, we understand that. But hopefully it can be a little bit of a step toward getting back to where they were in 17 and 18. And we'll be able to put a postscript, at least on television, on, much of the season, talk about guys that really improved. And there's some obvious ones that, and I don't mean took a little bit of a step or were a good player on a bad team type of thing. But, I think Elias Diaz, I think Brendan Rodgers had that class, the aforementioned Connor Joe. There were, a lot of positives, and shockingly, there's some good stories in the bullpen.
Yeah.
Of late. Now, you always have to, be cautious, and you can't take a 2 or 3 or 4 week period and say, oh, man, that guy's now a bona fide eighth inning guy going forward on a championship level team. But, guys like Kinley, young guys like Lucas Gilbreth, young guys like Jordan Sheffield have really kind of raised your eyebrow and said, interesting, right?
Absolutely. And in fact, this is the last thing I wanted to ask you about, because there's one guy who's popped my eyes wide open again and just hasn't had enough time, enough sample size. And we're in that spot again with Sam Hilliard, who, since getting called back up, I look at those numbers again and I go, man, he's on a 35 home run pace, striking out a ton, but he's doing that thing. And you go, if he can make just a little bit more contact, all the tools lull you back in. What do you make of this final stretch that we've seen from Sam Hilliard?
Well, I don't think this is any secret. I'm a big fan of Sam Hilliard. I'm a big fan of Garrett Hampson, and I know it hasn't happened as fast as some people would have hoped, and maybe there's there's the detractors out there that suggest it's not going to get appreciably better. They're going to be who they are. There's going to be a lot of strikeouts and so on. But I'm still really intrigued. I've said this many times, and I'm sure I've said this with you and Patrick here on DNVR. I've probably said it on my own podcast and on broadcast as well. And that it is, if Sam Hilliard showed up at a showcase as an 18-year-old kid, you would be drooling if you were any kind of professional scout or major college coach who was out recruiting. You'd say, what? Who is this hitting balls over buildings that, you can't hit a golf ball to?
Yeah.
Oh, let's see his arm. Oh, my goodness. He's throwing 95 miles an hour from the outfield. Oh, how does he run? He's a pretty big kid. Does he run okay? Oh, he runs a 6'4", 60. You'd be like, where did this guy get created? In a lab?
Right.
So I'm still really intrigued. And I'll tell you what, we'll talk more about this. We're going to talk about it on my podcast in the coming weeks. But in a perfect world, not my money to be spent, and it's a competitive environment out there for free agents, but I would try to get 2 more bats, corner outfield / first base / DH bats, right?
Yeah.
You can mix and match and give guys days off, Blackman, right. Crone, because you want Crone back. Connor Joe, I'm a big believer in. But you keep guys. What do they call it, Drew, in load management in the NBA? You're able to do that, especially the difficulty of playing it out. At altitude, and in center field, 95% of the time, I would run out Sam Hilliard against righties, and maybe that select lefty, and I would run out Garrett Hampson. And I think, the average may not be, super sexy, but the production at the end of the year, you may go, wow, we had, 38 home runs from center field and 32 stolen bases.
Right.
And you go, hey, that's not bad.
And a thing that I like, and I'm always talking about, that you need to help your pitchers out. And in that ballpark, you need that defensive center fielder. Garrett Hampson has really shown an ability. He's taken to that spot a lot better than I was always worried about. I was like, hasn't really played it before, but he's been fantastic. And Hilliard also, who had been a corner guy a lot throughout his minor league career, has taken to playing center field defensively very, very well. So I like it. I'm into it. Plus, like you said, you can probably get more thump on the free agent market out of corner guys. So
yeah, and they have to upgrade the offense, no question. But again, always a long-winded answer. I apologize, but Sam Hilliard's intriguing. Sam Hilliard's gotten better too.
Yeah.
At the start of the year, he needed to go back to Albuquerque, and now the walk rate's up a little bit. There's still going to be the strikeout in there. He has shortened his swing. And nobody can walk in his shoes as to what he's gone through off the field with losing his dad and his dad's courageous battle with ALS. And, oh, by the way, now I'm trying to, go out and play Major League Baseball every day, and I haven't solidified myself yet. So for him to be able to navigate that, I still believe the best is yet to come for Hilliard, and I believe the best is yet to come. I know you didn't mention Hampson, but I kind of threw him in there as well.
Yeah, no, and I think he belongs in there. And I think these are the types of guys, we were having that conversation with the Diamondbacks guys, and they were saying, a big part of the frustration is, one, they didn't plan on it. It's not like it was a tank going in. And two, a lot of the losses have come from just guys they thought were going to be good that haven't stepped up, and that's been very frustrating. And I said the opposite has kind of been true of the Rockies, and that's why I think some people, if they'd have stumbled their way into a slightly better record because their veterans carried them to it, it would have been fun to watch, but maybe at the end of the day, a little bit frustrating. I would have understood that. But it has been the Hilliards and the Hampsons and the Diazes and the Rogers and all the guys you mentioned in the bullpen. And that makes it far more intriguing going into the offseason. Say, what role do those guys play? To steal your line, are those guys a part of the solution? Because I think you've got a lot of guys in there who at the beginning of the season we had no idea about. No.
Yeah. Now they listen, they need help, and I'm upfront about that. They do need help. But here's what happens when February and March roll around. All of the prognosticating is not very creative, and oftentimes is not very deep in thought, in my opinion, because we are going to go, oh, that team, because they have that name and acquired that name, is going to be good because we have a familiarity with those names. Yet oftentimes, and you said this earlier, see Tampa, see many times Oakland.
Right.
Can you look and find the teams where maybe you're not familiar with the names, but they're really good baseball players and they're just not household entities yet? And the Rockies need some of those good stories. I say that every spring training. Every team that wins more than they lose is going to have, more good stories than disappointing stories. And, going forward, I want to see where Connor Joe goes. I want to see where Sam Hilliard goes. I want to see the next level for, 30-year-old Elias Diaz.
Yeah.
So, if the Rockies are to get back to the postseason in the near term, it'll begin with that, starting pitching, and they need to augment that because they've been fortunate with good health, and you knock on wood, as I'm doing right now, to see that continue. But it's going to be, less likely national names that lead them again to the postseason, and more games where people are going, who's that guy? Like last year, who the hell knew who Randy Arozarena was?
Right.
Yet he was playing in the World Series, and he was hitting, the top of that order, leading Tampa to very nearly a world championship.
Yeah, absolutely. So, all right, we'll be along for the ride. We'll be watching all that. We'll be watching these last couple of games, of course. I know you'll all be hanging out with us, both watching the broadcast on Twitter at Drew Creasman, at Drew Goodman 42, of course, at Patrick D. Lyons, and at DNVR_Rockies. A lot of fun out there on the social media. You got to subscribe to the DNVR.com for all the written content, for all the discounts, for the access to the Discord, for the free T-shirts, for the free high fives, all the fun stuff that comes with being a member of the DNVR family. So we appreciate you all for continuing to be absolutely awesome baseball fans out there. We promise we will continue to be absolutely Drew Goodman and Drew Creasman in here. And until next time, we will see you at the ballpark.